Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it's an edition of the Volpe Bazzo Report. I'm Dominic Volpe, your co-host. With me tonight, once again, our co-host Andy Bazzo and Mike Morrey,
Our
Democratic consultant. He's the vice president of SKD Knickerbocker. Welcome once again.
Thanks.
Yes.
All right.
By the way, for those of us who watched this last week, this is not a repeat of the same show. We are now looking into the future of next year's election, which is more county and local. And we got Dominic and Mike are very familiar, especially at the county level with the players. We're going to start there. About 3 weeks ago, I guess, when I taped the last show with Paganelli, with Darren Rigger. Bill Ryan used to be the chairman of the board of the Westchester County Legislatures, was the first to announce he's going to challenge Rob Astorino for county executive. You are both familiar with Bill Ryan.
Absolutely.
Let's give the people your take on who Bill Ryan is and why he decided to be the first in the water.
Well, I mean, I've known Bill quite some time, and he is a Peekskill boy.
And he's been very instrumental in all your races.
Correct.
He was one of the, publicly and behind the scenes, he made no bones about his support for you.
Oh, sure. He had always come. I mean, he's always been that little mentor on the side as far as, giving the information as far as what to help and advice, whatever was needed. Bill would always come to the aid. And being that Bill was demoted, I guess you could call it, about 4 years ago, from being the chairman to just a regular county legislator. And at that point, Ken Jenkins took over as the chairman because I guess he was able to grab enough of the coalition in order to make him the chairman of the board. So right now, that's where it is. So the assumption is out there is that if anyone was going to take a shot against Astorino, it would have been Ken Jenkins. So 3 weeks ago, as you stated, he mentions that it looks like he's ready to. He's already throwing his hat into the race.
Why do you think that Bill was the first to jump in the water?
So Bill is, as you said, he's a former Peekskill chair of the Peekskill Democratic Party. He was a former state assemblyman representing Peekskill and Cortland. He moved to White Plains, became a county legislator there, served as the chairman of the board there. So Bill gets into this first one with fairly significant countywide name recognition. He was the chair of the board of legislators. So
for many years.
Yes.
So he's got contacts and relationships in the major cities in Westchester. Knows most of the elected officials, most of the public. Most of the public is a stretch, I suppose.
He's got name recognition,
but he has fairly good name recognition. So that's one. Two, he represents the city of White Plains, which is outside of Yonkers and perhaps Mount Vernon,
maybe, yeah.
is probably, and New Rochelle, I suppose, is one of the biggest cities, communities in Westchester County.
I want to ask you about a character trait. Now,
Sure.
You've seen Jenkins just instinctively reject everything Astorino has done. Would Bill have been that reactionary, or do you think he would have found room for compromise with Astorino if he was chairman of the board?
Well, the chairman of the board is primary responsibility. And the reason you're the chairman of the board is because you're representing the majority of the board of legislators. The majority is overwhelmingly Democratic. It's the job of the chairman of the board of legislators to be a check on the county executive, particularly when the county executive is another party.
But would he have been so no?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you that.
I just didn't think he was. You just never struck me as the type to be so partisan.
Well, what is look? You could argue that Astorino has behaved more partisan. He hasn't been willing to work all that well with the board of legislators either. I don't know the answer to that question. What I can say to you is that Bill has a pretty good reputation and had a very good working relationship with Republicans on the county board of legislators when he was the chairman of the board of legislators. I can't speak to what the relationship is currently. But I can tell you that he does historically. He's had a good relationship there. That being said, it is the job of the chairman of the board of legislators to be the loyal opposition to the county executive if they are the other party. Bill worked with Andy Spano. Andy Spano was the county executive under his charge. It was a different relationship.
As a strategist, that Bill jumped in first, does that give him a leg up, or is it meaningless?
Well, it certainly it helps in terms of name identification. There's no question about that. Getting out there first, putting your name out there first. There will be many candidates.
That's what I want to get into both these. Jenkins is the first name.
Sure, Ken Jenkins is.
Who is the present chairman of the board of legislation.
Right.
Not only that, but Ken Jenkins is the chair of the Yonkers Democratic Party.
Right, so he's from Yonkers.
The largest city in Westchester, the largest conglomeration of Democrats in the county. Bodes well for a primary. I think Ken Jenkins is probably seriously considering it, and he would be very formidable in the race. I think you've got to look at someone like Tim Idoni, who is the county clerk. He is in his second term as county clerk. He was the mayor of New Rochelle, another major city in Westchester County. He has won his elections quite handily over the years. He's someone to look at for. Janet DiFiore, widely popular district attorney. She survived with a comfortable margin when Andy Spano didn't. They were on the ticket together. She got through. Andy didn't. Former Republican. She's got crossover appeal. She's a law enforcement Democrat. That always bodes well in a countywide race. So, and I think you've got some mayors out there you should look at. Maybe Noam Branson, the current mayor of New Rochelle.
What about Mike Spano?
I think that Mike Spano just took over as the mayor of Yonkers. I think it would be a bit of a stretch at this point. Now, you don't close the door to anything, but I think it would be a bit of a stretch for a first-year mayor of the fourth largest city in the state and the largest city in Westchester County to then jump into a race for county executive.
But let's recap though, because it was so you have on one side, on the Democratic side, you've got Bill Ryan, Ken Jenkins, Tim Idoni, and probably
maybe Janet DiFiore.
Yeah, but Janet would go Democrat or
well, she's a Democrat. She's a Democrat.
Oh,
she did switch
Oh,
parties.
she switched parties about 6 years ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So she would now be running. That would be the primary.
But then there's also Amy Paulin, who is the assemblywoman representing White Plains, who considered primarying Andy Spano at one point.
Right.
So, and she's sitting on a pretty hefty war chest.
What about on the other side? Do you see anybody primarying Astorino?
I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised.
Well, again, I go back to what we talked about on the last show, the dying Republican Party up here. Astorino is the best they got, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, well, look.
But he is the best they got. Who's the second best that would who's out there? What Republican is out there?
Well, probably one of the county board of legislators.
No one's gonna primary.
No.
Astorino comes into this with strong support from the more the far right end of the Republican Party.
Yeah, because he lost the Independence Party.
Astorino's race and the Mangano race in Nassau County were the first indicators of the Tea Party wave. Nationally, that race made news because there was no expectation that Andy Spano or Tom Suozzi would lose election. Astorino came in.
I predicted it. Come on,
I
admitted when I was wrong.
All right.
I called
all right. No one else did but you, and most people were shocked. And so he has solid Tea Party support. That being said,
why do you think Astorino lost the Independence Party?
Well, there's the Independence.
I'll
get to the Independence Party. But the other thing, the one last thing.
But without it, he couldn't have won.
Let me leave you with this on Astorino. Astorino will come into it with strong backing from the conservative base of the Republican Party. But Astorino, and this is not to belittle his campaign skills or the campaign he ran. The fact is Andy Spano lost that race more than Astorino won that race. Astorino is running in an overwhelmingly Democratic county.
Even more so now.
He hasn't made very many overtures to sort of become more moderate or more centrist. That being said, being a county executive, you're able to raise a lot of money. This is a wealthy county. He's going to come in well-funded. He has a lot of name ID. He is likable,
yes,
which is really important. Okay. So he is going to be formidable, and it is don't think for a second that the Democrats are a shoo-in to take the county executive's office. But that being said, the Astorino's win really needs to be looked at, his first win, in the context of the fact that that was a wave year for a new element of the Republican Party, the Tea Party. And Astorino, that race was more lost by Andy Spano than it was won by
But he also
Astorino.
had Republican, conservative, and independent endorsements. And in New York State, you add up the totality of the vote, not the individual lines, which a lot of states have.
Right.
How did he lose the independents support?
Look,
your best guess.
Look, there is whatever those distances are and cleavages that emerged between the leadership of the Independence Party and the county executive. I don't know. I don't know what those relationships are. The Independence Party was on the same page with him in and its determination to get rid of Andy Spano. Therefore, there was a natural allegiance between the Independence Party and Astorino. What has happened since that time, I frankly don't know.
No, but as a strategist, do you think the Independence Party can make up with Astorino, or does it depend on who the Democrat challenger is?
The Independence Party made up with Greg Paul.
I'm just saying.
I think it has a lot to do with who the challenger is.
Could be strategy also, because wasn't that the race where actually the Conservative Party cross-endorsed Spano?
Correct.
So maybe at that point they decided either we're going to go Independence Party or Conservative for the next race. So the assumption is probably this time that the Conservatives will back up.
Astorino is going to have an even harder hill to climb if he doesn't have the Independence line as a Republican in Westchester County. He's going to have to do whatever is necessary to make up with the Independence Party.
But we have also found that if he runs too far to the right, that doesn't play well in Westchester.
Of course not.
I mean, in the last election, where Greg Ball, the state senator, he won his election, but he lost Westchester. Mm-hmm. And so you can't run too far to the right in Westchester.
No, you can't. You can't. And that's why the Independence Party is so important for Republican countywide. Frankly, the Independence Party is so important for Republicans anywhere in Westchester County anymore.
Is there a problem with that, though? Because if they feel that, do the Conservatives get mad if they see him running to the Independents, which is more a
Yeah, I don't think so. Traditionally, Republican candidates in Westchester have run with the Independents, Conservative, and the Republican line. I'd be surprised.
So it's not like the Tea Party goes crazy.
No, I don't. If you go with the Working Families Party, yeah, I don't think that's the case. I don't.
Now, our present representative, I know it encompasses all of us, is John Testa. Mm-hmm. Do you see any? Because he had I like Mike Kane. Mm-hmm. He was a personal friend of mine. Yet he wasn't the challenger for John Testa like Dominic was. Do you see a formidable Democrat challenge in this new makeup of Democrats since this last election that could come up and challenge John Testa? Or does this seat stay Republican?
Well, the seat is, on the registration side, the seat now leans Democratic. John Testa was successful in winning elections in the city of Peekskill, in a city that was overwhelmingly Democratic. There's a distinction, though. The distinction there was that John Testa was fortunate to sort of be in office there at the tail end of what was a 25, 30-year Republican machine, which has basically dissipated. So I'd be careful. They
got old and died, and they didn't get anybody young in it. I've said this for years.
Well, look, I would.
You know it. You live in Peekskill.
What I'm saying, though, is I wouldn't draw too many. Look, to his credit, he's shown that he could get elected in a Democratic city, but he had the advantage of a Republican machine that doesn't exist today.
No, but with the redistricting, he lost a section of Peekskill.
The more conservative parts of Peekskill,
and gave up and got a section of Yorktown, where Yorktown is now 40% of his district instead of 20. Yeah. Now, is that where it becomes leaning Democrat because of the part of the Yorktown he got?
He lost the more conservative elements of Peekskill, which is sort of the lower south,
Welcher Avenue,
Welcher Avenue, lower south,
the Henry
lower
Cousin
Washington
School
Street.
District.
Yeah, District 3. Correct.
Yes. I think there are some formidable Democrats who could give John Testa a fairly solid run.
Care to mention a couple of names for our audience that's unfamiliar with
Sure. Rich Becker.
Right. Yeah. Oh wow! Yes, I didn't even think about Rich Becker. Don't you? Dominic said something before the last show we taped. He says Rich Becker must be kicking himself in the ass after last night.
I think Drew Claxton. I think that someone like Dan O'Neill, the former mayor of Buchanan. I think that possibly Frank Farrell, though I think Cortland's strongest candidate is Rich Becker by far.
Oh yeah.
There are a lot of folks out. But I think that would probably be the top tier.
Losing the primary to Mahoney, at least Becker didn't have to move. He still lives in Cortland.
I think that the creme de la creme would be a Rich Becker or a Drew Claxton.
Well, the reason why we get back to Dr. Becker, though, what the discussion was in the redistricting, if anyone got hurt, it was Dr. Becker.
Yeah, oh God, yes.
Because in that primary, he lost Peekskill, Cortland, and
he lost
his base,
which is his base.
Base.
And unfortunately,
now you talk about, you mentioned Drew Claxton, and I don't agree with her politically, but I like her as a person. I mean, when I needed her with taxi issues, she's been there. So I give her credit for locally that there is no Republican Democrat with local government. I've always said that. But she's never had an interest in moving up. She's been on the council since 2001,
2001.
right? And this is when you got your claim to fame, where you were the Democrat chairman then.
Was I the chairman then?
Yes,
I was,
you were the
okay,
chairman
okay.
then. You were also instrumental with John Hall's election, Take 19. I remember that well.
Yep.
I remember that well, your picture in the North County News back in those days. But how do you convince Drew, who would never want to move up to be mayor, to be a county legislator?
Well, I don't look. Let me preface this by saying Drew's a friend.
That's why I'm asking
a close
you.
friend.
But she's never shown an interest of moving up to mayor.
Well, look. Let's for 35 years since 1981 up until 2005, Republicans controlled City Hall. It's 2012 now. In the course of the time in which Drew Claxton was elected, she served for the first 4 years on the Common Council as a lone Democrat, and then a singular Democrat with one other.
She was the Kathy Pisani of her time.
Actually, the first 6 years, Republican control while she was on the council. There's a lot of work in terms of what the Democratic vision and agenda for Peekskill is. It takes a lot of time. She's the one with the most institutional knowledge. She was there in the prior administration. She's there.
Well,
in
in spite of the way the
administration.
publicity read, she was also the first voice on sewer diversion.
She was.
She was there before everybody.
I would not read. What I would read is, if you were going to read anything into sort of her decisions thus far to run for re-election to the city council, is she got elected with a job to do, and she's been doing that job. I wouldn't read too far into that in terms of what any other aspirations.
Now, question
or goals.
also, another one that I have to ask
Just
personally.
to go a little further though, and you have to look at it this way: when you take on these races,
Yes.
And here's what the fact is: you have to ask and beg family, friends, your workplace. Who knows what the situation is with her job? You know, sometimes you may be at the beginning of a work environment, in the middle, at the end, where you have more time to devote towards a political career or less time. So it really, there's all these factors that come
Now,
into
let me
when
ask
you
you,
take a
and I'm
run.
going to put you on the spot
But
here.
all that being said, she's probably the most wildly popular elected official in Peekskill.
Well, okay, now I'm going to put you on the spot, because I've always thought the ideal challenger to Testa would either be Linda Puglisi, who won't take the demotion, so we'll take her out, because
Right.
that would be a demotion.
Yes.
But Mary Foster, the present mayor of Peekskill.
Look, I think
That's a race people would pay real money to see. And you know that as well as I do. People would pay real money to see a race like that.
Well, look, I try to look at it a little more than sort of a spectacle, but
Politics is, it's
It
a
is-
sport.
it-
It's a
it
contact
is.
sport with no rules.
Look.
It's the greatest of all contact
I
sports.
certainly think that Mary would be a formidable candidate as well. She has shown she has really done a pretty pretty solid job of turning around, transitioning Peekskill from a sort of up and coming place to actually a vibrant city.
A destination.
It's a
place.
it is a destination.
As a member, as a taxi industry that works the train station, I can guarantee that in those years, Peekskill has become a more destination place,
And
because where people say they want to go when they get off the
Correct.
train.
It is.
That
it
are
is-
not
she's,
people going
she's
to
done
work and back.
She's done a phenomenal job at leading the city and turning Peekskill from what sort of was always expected to be the potential and actually achieving that potential. Look, the fact of the matter is, Peekskill is the destination location in North and Westchester County and even Putnam County now. People come to Peekskill for a night out. People come to Peekskill for arts, culture, dining.
They've taken a lot away from Cold Spring with that.
They have.
They have pulled a lot of
And Beacon as well.
And look, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to do as well. She's got she has a lot of work to do in seeing the Paramount get revived based on the failures of that board. So she's got a lot of work to do there. Look, I think she'd be a formidable candidate. I think she's won 3 consecutive elections. She won some of the widest margins in her last race. I think she won about 58% of the vote. Peekskill as a totality has increased population-wise. And that county legislative district is slightly Democratic. I frankly think that she is a pretty articulate and knowledgeable person when it comes to municipal finance, when it comes to budgets.
She's the Peekskill's version of Mike Kaplowitz. She knows her numbers.
She is a bit, in that way, yes. She's a bit, like Mike Kaplowitz is
That's not an insult.
No,
when
no,
I
it's
say
a
that.
compliment.
I mean, how many times have I said I've said it in print many times. Mike Kaplowitz, when it comes to numbers, smartest man in the room on that board.
Yeah, that is I think that's a really a sage comparison. Yeah.
So now, my question is this. Do you see any of the Democrats wanting to challenge Foster in a primary? Because I've always looked at Mary Beth McGowan, who's become more vocal on the council in the last year, as maybe thinking she should move up a notch. That's my own opinion, because you watch human behavior.
Sure.
And I love Mary Beth McGowan. Don't kid yourself. She, when I've talked to her about a number of issues, from the tattoo to police to taxi, she always says, I'm going to study what you said and get back to you. And she actually did. She didn't say it as a blow-off line.
Mm-hmm.
She actually got back to me after it said, well, I see your point there, and you're right about this point of law. Or I said, well, my study show. She actually did look it up.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't blow you off. So that tells me that she is a person of her word.
Yeah, look, she's run with Mary. She'll be, I believe, she's up again.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Year.
Does she give up the safe seat to maybe primary?
But for what? Why would she primary? Does she think that the city is going in the wrong direction? I'd be surprised if any sitting member.
Mary's been there for 3 terms.
3 terms.
That's usually the bellwether.
I'd be very surprised that if any member of the sitting common council, all of the same party as Mary Foster, who have run with her, and frankly, if you look at the work that's being done, has worked with her and collaboratively with her. I'd be very surprised for the rationale to primary, to have a primary from on the dais.
That'd be almost like
that
someone
being said,
running a primary against
anyone can do that.
But it just seems in Peaksville, 3 terms seems to be the bellwether of a candidacy for mayor.
We'll tell that to Vinnie Vesey or
he was only in 1 term.
No, he was 2 separate terms in 2 different periods of time, I believe.
But I said 2 terms. He didn't make 3
Yeah,
terms.
but how many terms did Fran Gibbs have?
I think she had 3.
Oh, maybe.
Testa had 3. Mary's had 3. You go back a
Richard
little.
Jackson probably had more than 3. It seems like he was the mayor forever.
No,
at
he
one point,
was.
right?
He was 3 terms.
Yes, me too.
Was it 3 terms?
3
Maybe.
terms.
Hey. Yeah.
I read the dates under the pictures in City Hall.
All right.
So I have a little knowledge.
The short answer is I don't know.
That's
I'd
why I
be
think
surprised.
Mary would go up against Testa, because it would be a step up, and then you would get Mary Beth.
But that assumes everyone who gets involved in politics is interested in climbing the green.
See,
wall,
I just
and
don't.
I
I
don't,
don't see any Democrats coming out other than Richard Becker, who I think would, if he said I'm going to run for the legislative seat, well, everybody else would sit down. Because he can self-finance, nobody else can except maybe you. Well, I'm trying to figure out who's more 1%, you or Becker.
Well, but 1% on the bottom.
I aspire to the 1%.
Well, that's why you went to the private sector. Welcome to the real world, Michael. Welcome to the real world. But seriously, I mean, he would make everybody else sit down and pause for reflection. But I don't see somebody out of the Democrat Party coming out of Yorktown
Look,
to do this, because
about this for a second.
Yorktown are cowards. They take
Did you ever hear of the name Nan Hayworth before she ran for Congress? She wasn't elected to anything. So I think that the universe of suggesting that the universe is only those sitting in elected office currently is a very
It's
narrow
the universe you
perspective.
start with.
Well, look at-
It's
and
the
here's-
universe you start with.
If you're looking, correct.
And,
It is.
and actually look at Mark Grace, even in Yorktown. Never held any position before.
Except the town attorney.
But that's appointed. That's
I
not
mean, he
elected.
had some name recognition at that point.
But very little compared to,
you maybe say Dave Paganelli now.
Yeah, right.
Where he came out and wound up getting more votes than anybody that's ever run for the council in Yorktown before Murphy.
But the point
before
is-
that was Murphy.
But the
Well,
point
here's
getting
I guess the question I would have for you, and you would know this better than me, is who's running on the Republican side
In what?
in local elections?
Okay, I believe in Yorktown, even though this show doesn't show in Yorktown, I believe that Grace goes for a second term.
Sure.
And I see, because it's a safe seat, and even though I have argued against it vehemently, Paganelli taking on Kaplowitz.
Really?
Even though I've argued, I said, don't be the next Terrence Murphy. Take your 4 years, run for another 4, and then play with the safe seats. At least Moderano stayed in for 1 term before he had aspirations for a higher office. He gave it its first 4. He actually gave it 8 years before he decided he wanted. But Murphy making a mistake, you get a reputation of saying, I really don't want this job. It's hurt Murphy, and I think it hurts his chances because he's up for re-election now.
Well, who are
next
the
year.
two seats that are up for re-election in Yorktown?
It would be Vishnu Patel and Terrence Murphy.
Oh, Terrence
No one
Murphy.
can out-campaign Vishnu.
Vishnu never stops. He's your Democrat Greg Ball with the time on his hands to do it.
Please don't compare him to Greg Ball.
No, I'm talking about as far as campaigning. Vishnu has a map of every house in Yorktown.
Vishnu understands retail politics, and he is willing to work and earn every single
And
vote.
he's got the time
And you
because
have to
he
respect
checks.
that.
I've seen his map where he checks off the house, and by the time election day comes, he has visited every
He's a phenomenal
single
guy.
house in Yorktown.
Well, that's what you have to do.
Well, that's Nick Bianco's secret too: constituent service and knocking on doors. There's a reason why certain people are successful, and Nick is always in that thing about visiting, talking to people, why he survived and Moderano didn't, because Moderano, you only heard his name in election years, where Nick, he's always there, and Paganelli, obviously, who was supposed to be with us on this show.
So how about the
But
town-
he is helping constituents get dry ice and electricity.
So how about town of Cortland then?
That's up to Queen Linda.
Oh, no, she's not leaving. How about the council seats?
Well, that depends if Brecker decides he wants to become a legislator. And that leaves an open seat, but I think it's time.
Yeah, but he's or not.
Okay,
he's
you
not up
want
for-
my answer?
Yeah, but he's-
we have talked about this in private.
Yeah, but
I think
he's
somebody should die so you could run for the open seat. Because unless they die, ain't nobody leaving that town board.
Well, who are the two people?
It has
up
been
this seat?
remarkably consistent.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the three-term and
Well,
Apple
Becker
is not.
would be up this year.
Is Becker up this year?
Yes, Becker's up. It's the
Okay.
fourth year. And what if it's Farrell ran with Becker?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, no, Becker didn't win 2 years ago. He won 4 years
No,
ago.
Farrell ran with Ann. So it would be Sloan and Becker, correct?
Right, it's Sloan and Becker that's up. And neither
Or
of
no,
them.
maybe I'm wrong about that.
No.
It's Farrell and Becker.
No, it's Sloan and John Sloan and Farrell.
Right, 'cause
excuse me,
Becker just
and
won
Lindau.
re-election.
It's Lindau and Sloan always ran together
Yes.
those same
Becker
years.
just won re-election
Yeah,
to the
Becker
board.
and Farrell are safe. They're in there for 4 years, so they're
Okay, so and like
So
I
it's
said,
Ann Lindau
now
and
you
John
live in
Sloan.
Cortland.
Right.
Do you see any of them stepping down or dying soon?
I've only heard just recently that maybe John was thinking about, because he's been there like 20 years now, I think, if not, maybe
So's
16.
Linda.
Yeah, but Linda's in
And then
She's been
it's
coronated.
institution.
See, you know that little circle at Oregon Road in Westbrook.
Right.
I've always figured the statue of Linda Puglisi should sit in the middle of that instead of that Christmas.
Well, hey,
tree.
I think you should start.
She earned it.
She's earned it.
Yes, honest to God, I mean,
She's been a phenomenal supervisor.
her opposition at its most powerful was 30%.
Right.
So that means even Republicans are voting for her because Cortland is not 70% Democrat. Let's face it. So she has appealed to a crossover vote that is the envy of the surrounding supervisors and mayors.
Yeah.
Correct. Oh, across the state, I think she's got.
No, but
a
we're just
phenomenal
dealing with the
record.
local politics.
Okay.
Well, it looks like this show went faster than the last one. This is what I say. What say you, Michael? Thank you, and I assume you will be back.
Sure, have me back
Michael,
anytime.
welcome aboard.
Thanks,
All right.
Dominic.
Did you have fun?
I did. This is great. This is great.
Was it what you expected? Or?
It was exactly what I expected.
I mean, you notice we're kind of freewheeling.
Yeah,
here.
this
It's
is
not scripted.
No, this works well. This works well.
I thought so. Yeah.
No complaints here. I'll come back anytime you'll have me.
We'll take care of that. Don't worry. It'll be
all right.
next year then.
Okay.
No, we have. I have Joe Hansen and Dee Bartola for the 28th to talk about the roads and